10 people wake up on a beach. They don't remember themselves. They don't know the circumstances under which they found themselves in this place. Trying to find out something, they notice the same clothes, and looking at them, they find names on the tags. They decide to call themselves by those names. Chase is the most active and is quite nervous of Casey, who responds to her with suspicion and hostility. Chase, Brody, and Donovan go off to investigate and soon enough find out that everyone had an item lying where they came to be. Donovan goes back to the others, while Brody and Chase go on their way. The main group tries to build theories of their getting to this island, but no one can come up with anything plausible. None of them feel any pain and there are no injuries on the humans. Meanwhile, Hayden meets Mason and suggests they be together because she feels like they have something in common. The couple manages to light a fire using some found glass. The man decides to make an inscription calling for rescue in the sand. Although Taylor notices the lack of airplanes during their entire time on the island. Suddenly, she finds a book in the sand. Not realizing what it is, she tosses it aside. Seeing Donovan, Casey is unnerved by Brody's absence, though she herself doesn't understand why it bothers her so much. But after listening to the man's urging, the company runs for a swim. Meanwhile, Chase and Brody find a waterfall in the back of the island. Suddenly, Chase literally pounces on the woman. She escapes by threatening the man with a knife. Meanwhile, while swimming, the men are attacked by a shark. Donovan dies. The others barely make it to shore. The despondent company has tried to cheer up the returning Brody. He shows the found objects, but they tell him what happened. Immediately, Casey comments on the oddities in Chase's behavior, how she found all those items. But Brody cuts the conversation short and suggests they move to the rocks where there is less wind and a fire can be made. The man begins handing out tasks. When Chase returns, she lashes out at Brody in front of everyone, accusing him of assaulting and hiding the fresh waterfall. The men are baffled, not realizing who to believe. For the night, everyone settles right on the shore. Chase has nightmares, a pool of blood and her with a gun. But when she opens her eyes, she sees the same ocean. She goes to the shore and suddenly sees Donovan lying on the shore, begging for help. The men organize to carry the man to the camp. Later, Brody apologizes to Chase. He needs her help because the men are deciding who will lead the team. Brody suggests going to the back of the island because there is water and plant food there, but not everyone agrees with him. Mason shares an oddity. There were exactly 39 steps between their lying bodies, and there was some needed item under each one. He and Hayden counted the steps and found a sign that said "way back," standing on the ocean. Chase considers it a clue, but the others decide to head back to camp. Desperate, the woman drops the sink, which turns out to be a digital device. Chase wakes up on the shore again and suddenly sees a life raft. The girl rushes to the water and hurts her leg, but pays no attention to it. She swims to the raft, not noticing the bloody trail left behind her in the water, which is felt by the sharks. At the last moment, she manages to reach the raft and pulls it to shore. Chase returns to the others but does not report her find. Case and Brody leave to look for something edible, while Chase returns to the raft and examines the suitcases found in it. One contains a first aid kit and the other an obscure briefcase. Without opening it, Chase hides his findings and returns to camp. Meanwhile, Brody leads Casey to the waterfall while Chase shows some of the findings to Cooper. Once again, the number 39 comes up. Casey reveals that it was Chase who took the knife away from her and kisses the man. Later, the men anxiously watch the impending storm, Brody again urging them to hide in the back of the island. Cooper can't stand it and punches the man. A fight ensues, during which Brody takes away Chase's knife, who reminds the man of his compass and matches, which he also takes the time to share. Brody drops the knife and walks off into the interior of the island. The storm begins, and the men hide under the awning of the raft and fall asleep. Chase has another dream with a bloody puddle and a woman she shoots. In the morning, Chase goes to the ocean and finds the remote in a broken sink. She runs to the campground and sees Brody sitting by the campfire. After showing him the direction to look for the others, she hurries to her storage unit, uses the remote to open the case and finds a gun in it. Casey discovers a scratch on her stomach. Blair tries to offer her words of sympathy. She guesses that Brody did something bad to her. In the afternoon, the men go about their business, the men making spears, the women setting up camp. Chase calls Cooper to the rocks. It's time to finally realize where they are. The pair set off, but soon Cooper suggests they go back, for it will soon begin to get dark. Meanwhile, on the shore, the women rejoice over the first fish they caught, and Cooper and Chase find a modern building in the thicket of the forest, overgrown with vines. Donovan comes to his senses, much to the women's delight. At this time, Cooper and Chase return and announce their discovery, but Brody is again unhappy at being outmaneuvered and threatens the woman. Opinion is divided. The men believe Chase is provoking the man herself and suggest she leave. During the night, she has her dream again and wakes up to being dragged out of the raft. The enraged men drag her to shore, where Brody lies in a pool of blood. She tries to prove that she didn't do it and then throws herself into the fight, but gets hit in the head and loses consciousness. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself in a doctor's chair. A woman enters and begins to manipulate Chase's body, which she doesn't feel. The woman is horrified. She is paralyzed, and how did she end up here? When she next wakes up, she sees a man in front of her who introduces himself as Dr. Conrad and frees her from the magnetic force field. He walks away, leaving the woman completely bewildered. Security guards arrive and take Chase to an office where she is met by an older man, the sheriff, who inquires about her well-being, as what was tested on her is still being tested. Warden Wells tells her that none of them were on the island. It's all a simulation. They're inmates of this prison. They were sent to the island to see how they would behave when given a second chance to start their lives over. And everything that happened was very real, even death. After the experiment is over, she is returned to the simulation. Chase is returned to the cell, where the doctor prepares to put her to sleep. But the girl remembers her fighting skills, puts down the guards, and, taking the doctor hostage, makes her way outside. She is caught almost on the way out and placed in a force field. She falls asleep and sees her nightmare again. In the morning, the woman is taken to an office where she is met by neurostimulation developers headed by Dr. Stevenson. The woman tries to explain the principle of how the brain works. During the experiment, Chase was given a drug that put her into a coma. She is asked to evaluate her behavior. It turns out that she is the first participant in the project with whom it is possible to talk. The main question that concerns scientists is nature or nurture. What influences a person's behavioral motives? The scientists start an argument about continuing the experiment, in which Chase learns that she has behaved in a bad way. The sheriff interrupts the argument and invites Chase in for a conversation. He is not interested in the opinion of the scientists. For him, the most important thing is funding. He doesn't believe in the experiment, but he is obligated to run the program, which is being watched at the very top. Chase will return to the island and be tested, but if she dies there, she will die here. Later, the scientific council decides that Chase should return to the program. She tries to refuse, but no one wants to listen to her. The woman is grabbed by guards and, despite her resistance, is carried outside, where she regains consciousness with a chain around her neck. The warden was hoping to get her thrown out of the program. Chase asks to be told who the woman she keeps seeing in her nightmares is and punches the sheriff in the face, but he only laughs and unleashes his security guards on her. The psychiatrist wants to know what Chase remembers about her life before the island and advises her to stay herself and find her way back. The warden is clearly trying to influence her, so Chase has to be strong. She is interrupted and forced to take pills and then put into a car and driven off the property. But in the car, Chase punches a security guard and jumps out. She sneaks into the lab and, wearing a white coat, finds a room where the bodies of those who were with her on the island lie in transparent capsules. She is surrounded by guards. The supervisor comes up and tells her to remember everything because she is home. The woman is injected and placed in the capsule. The sheriff commands the launch. Chase opens her eyes, lying on the beach with her hands bound, surrounded by her former buddies. The girl tries to tell them what she's been through, but no one believes her because her body didn't disappear and she was only on the beach for 15 minutes. Chase convinces her that the island isn't real, it's just a simulation, but people look suspiciously around, convinced that a serious concussion is the cause. Blair asks the girl to calm down and rest so she can come to her senses faster, but Chase is sure they are all in jail for some crime of their own. Hayden suddenly remembers a terrible episode from her life in which she massacred her boyfriend, but even that doesn't make the girl stand up for Chase. The company decides to check her pockets. The girl is piled on the sand and is about to be searched. They are stopped by a strange pair of strangers. They stick up for Chase, but something in their words seems suspicious to her, and the girl continues to suspect that it's all part of the game. The guests introduce themselves as Bonnie and Clyde, and the company senses something familiar about it, but without much suspicion they invite the couple. During dinner, everything becomes clear. Casey remembers who the famous names belong to and finds inconsistencies in the words of the new acquaintances. Bonnie and Clyde don't think about lying anymore. Once at the camp, they reveal their true colors, confessing that they are hunters sent by the warden. In addition, Clyde stabs Hayden to make it clear that he's not kidding. The strangers confirm everything Chase said about the prison and the simulation. Clyde warns that all the blockage has been removed from their memories and it won't be long before the memories start coming back. He therefore advises Chase to escape. Those around her will not let her live knowing what information she has. Armed, Chase goes back and gives the company the suitcase with the drugs. She then escapes, But now her companions are even more so and don't understand what they are supposed to do or how to get out. Clyde warns the team that it's not that simple. They can get to the other island, but everyone has to get approval for that. How to do that they will find out later, but for now they can explore the island. The company gathers around Hayden, discussing what to do next. Cooper suggests they start by burying the bodies. During the ceremony, Casey announces that she is leaving to find the village that Bonnie and Clyde came from. Moses and Cooper are going with her. The friends do find the village, or rather empty houses. While they look them over, Bonnie and Clyde cover their faces with masks and announce the start of the game. Blair finds an abandoned building that she plans to take refuge in as well. Casey and Moses set up in the village, while Cooper heads back to the camp as promised. There at this time, Blair is trying to help Donovan. The girl at this point has snippets of flashbacks in which she sees herself as a nurse working with critically ill patients. Chase also sees her mother, whom the girl herself has gotten rid of. When the introduction passes, she finds a key in front of her. Blair sees her disconnecting the children, believing that this is how she helps them. Walking along the beach with these thoughts, the girl notices Taylor, who is dragging a raft to the water. She warns her friend that Clyde has forbidden them to leave the island, but the blonde doesn't care about the conditions. She intends to get away from here. Sitting on the beach, Casey remembers her last encounter at the bar. The conversation with the handsome guy is burned into her memory. Opening the room with the key she found, Chase searches the room and finds a stash containing an envelope with photos and some documents. Taylor's raft crashes and the girl climbs ashore in pain. She also gets flashbacks and sees how she and her buddy decided to rob a bank. Casey keeps going back to her past life too. She remembers her husband constantly raising his hand at her, especially for asking him to get a job to feed the kids. After another prank of the spouse, the girl decided to communicate with the guy in the bar, and now all her free time she spent with him. But one day she was in for an unpleasant surprise. Casey found a note in which he said goodbye to her, thanking her for a wonderful time. All this time, Cooper continues to wander through the jungle, exploring the island, and he manages to overhear a conversation between Bonnie and Clyde, who say that their task is to eliminate criminals and get money for it. Casey's thoughts do not give her rest. She remembers the day when she decided to leave her husband and informed him about it. Hearing from him another insult, the girl became mad, and first she sent the car with her sons into the sea, and then decided to cut off her life right in front of her husband. Moses tries to calm the friend, who had a nervous breakdown from such memories, but she gets worse. Everywhere, the girl sees her sons and a reminder of what she did. Taylor continues to make her way through the jungle, and at some point, the girl loses consciousness. When she opens her eyes, she sees a campfire next to her and a plate of flavorful chicken, which she happily eats. Donovan and Blair are chatting, and suddenly the guy gets down on one knee in front of his friend and proposes to her. At this point, the guy starts to reminisce too. He used to like the girl, and after finding out that she throws his flowers in the trash, Donovan takes her life. Mason shows up and distracts his buddy. As he listens to Casey's story, Moses remembers his own crimes as well. This helps him understand his friend better and find the words to convince her to forgive herself. Casey tells his buddy that they have to find Chase. Only the girl knows what to do next. Chase finds Cooper. The girl shows him the pictures she found. They show her old house, a road to Texas, and a portrait of Chase with her boyfriend. Taking the picture, Cooper recognizes himself, and it turns out he even remembers the day the photo was taken. Bonnie and Clyde find Taylor and remind her of her orders not to leave the island. They are willing to not punish her for violating it, but they won't rescue her either. The girl will have to survive here on her own. Only Taylor should know that there is only one person living on the island besides her, Cannibal, and the chicken he fed her was not a chicken. Casey wakes up from nightmares of her children burning the village. Eventually, when Moses comes running to help, the huts are gone, and it turns out that it was Casey herself who set them on fire. Chase is taken back to her earlier childhood when her mom scolded her for being weak. When she got a little older, Chase took up wrestling, but that didn't please her mother either. The woman thought that her daughter disgraced her with her ignorant appearance, and when she learned that she was going to join the army, she practically disowned Chase. Looking at her, Cooper recalls that he and his girlfriend met in the army. While performing missions, the couple chatted constantly over the radio. When Cooper was wounded, Chase ended up by his side, and they haven't parted since. Moses and Casey go in search of their friends, but stumbling into a dead end, the guy realizes that to bypass the cape is possible only by swimming. The idea scares the girl, the water reminding her of what she did to her sons. Blair handles Mason's leg, and Donovan strongly dislikes it. His reaction scares the girl, and she asks him to stop his declarations of love. Blair asks Mason not to leave her alone with Donovan. Cooper recalls how his girlfriend picked him up from the hospital with terrible scars on his face. It seemed to the guy that his life was over, but Chase assured him that everything would be fine. All that was left was to negotiate with his mother to renew their lease on the ranch. At that moment, the guy sees Chase's mother, and as soon as the vision is gone, he asks the girl to leave. The place seems to be cursed, and it's driving them crazy. Chase is sure she got rid of her mother, but Cooper assures her that she didn't. Someone is setting them up, and he can almost remember who. Donovan seizes the moment and gets rid of his rival. The girl at this time remembers that in the past she was not with a man, and it seems to her that this will calm the fanatical admirer. But it turns out to be too late. She notices Mason covered with a palm branch. The girl pretends to reciprocate Donovan's feelings and leaves with him for the beach, where she pulls the trigger of a flare gun. Casey and Moses find Cooper and Chase and ask them to at least explain something to them. Guy, meanwhile, reminisces again about the time he and his girlfriend fought over the ranch. After learning that her daughter had chosen an ugly soldier as her husband, the woman refused to renew her lease, daring her mother-in-law to talk to her one day. Cooper had accidentally fired a shot. The shot happened, and now, on second thought, the guy wounded Moses. Suddenly, Bonnie and Clyde show up, and a fight breaks out between everyone. Chase gets rid of the hunters, but they just disappear, unlike the girl herself, who falls from a serious injury. Upon reaching the beach, Chase loses consciousness and opens her eyes while in her office. Dr. Weiss informs Chase that they managed to get her out at the last minute. The security guard notices that the two hunters are playing their own game, interfering with the experiment. Weiss meets with the warden and warns him that she will report the games with the prisoners to management. She asks him not to disturb Chase, but the warden refuses to obey the woman. The warden can't stand being argued with at all. The warden concludes that Chase needs to shut her mouth for good, or else she will tell someone about what she saw and that she was mistakenly thought to be guilty. The security guards invite Chase to come with them for her evaluation to go through all the steps of the release protocol. For the first time ever, the girl hears her name Gabriella from the counselor. She also learns the real names of the other inmates. Chase doesn't like the smile with which the specialists talk about simulation. She feels like everyone imagines the game to be very innocent, although it's far from that. Chase talks about how the trials on the island are too harsh even for those who are guilty. When the turn comes to the therapist, Chase refuses his vitamin drips, and even an upcoming meeting with her boss can't change the girl's mind. Vel informs the girl that there is not a dime left to her from her mother. All the money has gone to donations. Chase will have to go out empty-handed, but the chief can help her to take a worthy place in her new life, and for this she will behave well at the meeting with the jury, not to say anything unnecessary and not to give away secrets about the fact that he sent hunters to the island. Chase agrees, but on one condition. Boss pulls Cooper out of the simulation so she can talk to him about what he did. The jury interviews Bonnie and Clyde, suggesting they turn in whoever hired them, but the pair refuse to talk about it, accepting the punishment. Next, Chase is invited into the room. The girl cannot hold back her emotions and tries to find out from the scientists why they ran a cruel simulation and why they allowed the hunters to get rid of prisoners. The session is interrupted by a call to the warden, and the judges take a break, during which the security guard calms the girl, promising that by the end of the day she will be free. But the warden has other plans for her. With his assistant, he comes to Chase's room, intending to get rid of the witness. Dr. Weiss manages to prevent the boss and his accomplice in time, arresting them red-handed, and afterwards sits in the chair of the accused, trying to justify himself for his evil deeds. The boss tries to reveal some secret to Chase, but Dr. Weiss orders him away, leaving the girl in the dark again. Chase is given clothes, $200 and a bus ticket, but before she leaves, she tries to find out what secret Wells wanted to tell her. Dr. Weiss admits it's time to reveal the truth. She asks Chase to be patient for a while and pulls a sensor out of her, which finally breaks the girl's connection with the simulator. When Chase approaches the mirror, she realizes with horror that she is much older than she thought. She has spent 25 years on death row. The girl demands to be returned to her husband, but the doctor regretfully informs her that this is impossible. The only thing she can comfort the woman with is to tell her that she has spent 25 years making the simulation better. Finally, the girl finds herself free, but where to go she doesn't understand. Warden Wells opens his eyes on a sandy beach, and above him he sees Casey and Cooper congratulating an old acquaintance on his arrival on the island. This is where the series ends. Write in the comments what you think of it.